Gnostic doctrine, an ancient wisdom or a dangerous misstep? Do the Nag Hammadi scriptures, discovered in 1945, change anything fundamental about faith? Isn't it curious that these texts reappeared after nearly 1,600 years of obscurity? What impact, if any, do they have on belief systems rooted in the well-known message of Jesus, his teachings of love, redemption, and universal access to salvation? Could these writings challenge the core of Christian doctrine, or do they stand as a historical curiosity rather than a spiritual revelation? Did Jesus' mission align with the idea of secret wisdom, or was his path one of openness and transformation for every soul? In the next few minutes, we'll decode these questions and uncover the heart of Jesus' message. The Gnostic worldview often claims that the physical world is flawed, created by a lower, imperfect deity, while the true God remains distant and uninvolved. But Jesus' parables tell a very different story. Let's begin with one of the most striking examples, the parable of the wheat and the tares. In Matthew 13:24-30, Jesus tells the story of a farmer who plants good seed in his field. But at night, an enemy sows weeds among the wheat. When the workers notice the weeds growing, they ask the farmer if they should pull them up. The farmer replies, "No, because while you are pulling the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest." This parable reveals a profound truth. God, as the creator, plants the seeds of goodness in the world. The weeds represent evil introduced by an enemy, but the farmer's patience reflects God's sovereignty and wisdom. He allows time for growth and redemption before the final judgment. Unlike the Gnostic claim that the material world is inherently evil or created by a flawed deity, Jesus affirms that the world's goodness comes from God himself. The presence of evil does not negate God's role as the loving creator. Instead, it highlights his ultimate plan for justice and redemption. Next, let's turn to the parable of the mustard seed, found in Matthew 13:31 and 32. Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven to a mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds, which grows into a large tree that provides shelter for the birds of the air. This parable emphasizes the kingdom of God growing within the world, starting small but expanding to bring life and shelter. This stands in stark contrast to the Gnostic idea that the material world is corrupt and separate from God's plan. Jesus shows us that God's kingdom is active and flourishing within creation, not apart from it. And for a deeper dive into this parable, we've made a whole video dedicated to the parable of the mustard seed, which you can find linked in the description. In Luke 15:3-7, Jesus shares the parable of the lost sheep. A shepherd leaves his 99 sheep to find the one that is lost. When he finds it, he rejoices and carries it home on his shoulders. This parable reflects God's deep personal involvement with his creation. Far from being distant or uninvolved, God actively seeks out and restores what is lost. The Gnostic idea of a distant, transcendent deity who abandons the material world simply doesn't align with the God revealed in Jesus' teachings. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus tells us to look at the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. He reminds us that God provides for them and how much more he will provide for us, his children. This teaching affirms God's care for the material world. Far from being a place to escape, the world is where God's provision and love are displayed. This directly opposes the Gnostic view that the material realm is unworthy of God's attention. In Matthew 19:14, Jesus says, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." And in John 14:6, he says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." These teachings affirm that innocence and trust in God bring us closer to him. Moreover, Jesus emphasizes that belief in him is the path to the kingdom of God. These truths stand in direct contradiction to Gnostic doctrines that deny the significance of faith in Jesus and the goodness of creation. The Gnostics, who often believe that secret knowledge or an awakened consciousness is the key to salvation, miss the simple and profound truth that Jesus invites all, even children, into his kingdom through faith and trust. Finally, Jesus' teachings on the resurrection affirm the goodness of the physical body. In Matthew 22:31 and 32, Jesus declares that God is not the God of the dead, but of the living, affirming the future resurrection of the body. This contradicts Gnostic ideas that devalue the body and seek escape from the material world. Jesus teaches that God's plan includes the redemption and restoration of both body and soul. Through these parables, Jesus paints a picture of a God who is both creator and redeemer, deeply involved in his creation. The material world is not an evil prison, but a place where God's kingdom grows, his care is evident, and his redemption unfolds. The Gnostics often point to the Nag Hammadi scriptures to support their doctrines. But we must ask, what about those who lived from the 2nd century until their discovery? Were they abandoned by God, or did he fail to preserve his message? Jesus' words remind us otherwise, as he said the time is near, and we must return to God. This assurance underscores his ongoing presence and faithfulness. The teachings of Jesus expose the errors of Gnostic doctrine and affirm the goodness of God's creation and his ultimate plan for restoration. Let's hold on to these truths and celebrate the hope we have in him. Remember, as children of God, we should take pride in our identity, striving for perfection just as Jesus invites us to follow him, saying, I am the way and the truth and the life, John 14:6. Although this world is not perfect, God calls us to thrive and grow towards perfection, following the example of Jesus. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to Faithful Mindfulness for more inspiring content. Thanks for watching.